"Father, please, just a little food." The boy's voice was weak, trembling like a dry leaf in the wind. His clothes were torn, his ribs showed through his chest, and his hands shook as he stretched them out toward the old man sitting by a fire in the courtyard. Villagers gathered around, whispering in disbelief. The old man's eyes, tired but sharp, looked down at the boy kneeling before him. He recognized the face, though hunger had changed it. This was his own son, the very boy who once laughed at him, who mocked his trade, who had stormed out of the house years ago claiming he would never work with his father's rough, dirty hands. Now here he was, a beggar, on his knees, begging for food before the entire village. The crowd grew silent, waiting to see what the old man would do. Would he give his son food? Would he forgive him? Or would he turn away? The old man lifted his staff slowly, and everyone leaned closer, their eyes wide. But before he spoke, the boy collapsed flat on the ground. Dust rose into the air. His lips moved, but no sound came out. Years before that shameful day, in a small village deep in the heart of Africa, lived a respected craftsman named Ose. Ose was a blacksmith, one of the finest in the land. His forge burned day and night, and the sound of his hammer rang like a drum across the village. Farmers, hunters, and even warriors came to him to repair their tools, shape their knives, and forge their spears. But Ose was not only known for his skill, he was known for his strength, his patience, and his love for his only son, Kweku. From the day Kweku was born, Ose dreamed that his boy would one day take over the forge and carry on the family's name. "Kweku," he would say as the boy sat watching him, "this fire is not just heat. It is life. These tools I make are not just iron. They are the hands of the village. If you learn this trade, you will never go hungry. People will always need a blacksmith." But Kweku, even as a boy, wrinkled his nose at the soot and the sweat. He hated the heat of the fire. He hated the ringing of the hammer. And most of all, he hated the dirt. "Father," he said one day, "why must I learn this ugly trade? I want to be rich, not covered in ash. I want to wear fine clothes, not rags burned by sparks. I will not waste my life here in the smoke." Ose stopped his hammer and looked at his son. "Riches do not come from wishing, my boy. They come from work. This trade has fed you since the day you were born. Do not despise it." But Kweku only laughed. "You are old-fashioned. Times are changing. I will go to the city, and there I will find an easier life. I will not be like you." Ose's heart sank, but he said nothing. He only hammered the iron harder, sparks flying like stars into the night. As Kweku grew older, his pride grew with him. He spent his days wandering the village, mocking other children who walked with their fathers. "Look at you, bending in the farm," he teased one boy. "And you, carrying water like a slave." The other children grew to dislike him, but Kweku did not care. He believed he was better than all of them. He would not lower himself to dirty work. One morning, when Ose tried once again to teach him the forge, Kweku shouted, "I will not be a blacksmith." He threw down the hammer and stormed out of the hut. His mother, Oma, wept, but Kweku did not turn back. That night, he left the village altogether, chasing dreams of wealth and an easy life. At first, the villagers pitied Ose. "Your son will return," they said. "He is just a boy." But years passed, and there was no word from Kweku. Ose grew older, his beard turning white, his arms weaker, but he never stopped walking. He continued to shape iron, feed his family, and serve the village. Then, one fateful day, a rumor spread like wildfire. "Kweku is back. Ose's son has returned." The people gathered at the entrance of the village to see. And there he was, but not as they had expected. His once proud shoulders were bent, his fine clothes were now rags, his cheeks sunken from hunger. He looked nothing like the boy who had left boasting of riches. Children whispered, "Is that really him?" Women shook their heads in pity. The men crossed their arms, muttering, "So pride has brought him here." Kweku staggered into the village square, his eyes darting around until they landed on the forge. He saw his father sitting by the fire, his hammer resting on the anvil. Slowly, with trembling steps, Kweku walked forward, the villagers following behind him like a shadow. When he reached the fire, he fell to his knees. His voice broke as he whispered, "Father, please, just a little food." The villagers gasped. The proud boy who once mocked the trade of his father now begged like a beggar. Ose stared at him silently, his heart torn between pain and pity. He had always known pride would bring his son down, but never had he imagined this. He lifted his staff slowly, as if to speak. But before a word left his mouth, Kweku collapsed, dust rising around him as his body struck the ground. His lips moved faintly, as if trying to say something, but the words were lost in the wind. The villagers gasped again, rushing closer. What had happened to Kweku? Was this the end of the boy who had refused his father's trade? Or was there still a lesson yet to be learned? The villagers crowded around, their faces pale with shock. Some whispered, "The gods have punished him." Others said, "This is what happens to a son who disrespects his father." Mothers held their children close, as if warning them silently not to follow Kweku's path. Ose bent slowly, his knees stiff with age, and touched his son's chest. The boy's heart still beat, faint but present. His lips trembled as he whispered, "Father, please, forgive me." Ose sighed heavily. His heart was torn. He remembered the day Kweku stormed out of the house, leaving his tools behind, mocking the sweat on his father's brow. He remembered his wife's tears, the long years of silence, and the ache of disappointment. Yet here was his son, broken, humbled, begging not only for food but for forgiveness. Ose raised his hand to the crowd. "Bring water." A woman rushed forward with a clay pot. Ose lifted his son's head gently and poured the cool water into his cracked lips. Kweku drank greedily, coughing, but life returned to his eyes. The villagers watched in silence, waiting to see what the old man would do next. "Father," Kweku whispered, his voice weak but clearer now. "I left you. I mocked you. I thought the world owed me riches. But when I reached the city, I found only lies. The men I trusted cheated me. The friends I followed abandoned me. I worked for many masters, but I refused to learn anything. And when my money was gone, no one cared for me. I starved in the streets, Father. And now, I return to you with nothing." Tears streamed down his face as he clutched Ose's robe. "Please, Father, teach me now. I will learn. I will work. Only don't let me die like this." The villagers gasped again. They had never seen Kweku so broken, so desperate. Many of them nodded quietly, knowing the boy had finally learned the lesson he had run from. Ose looked at his son for a long moment, then stood tall, his voice ringing like the hammer on his anvil. "Let all of you hear me. A son who despises his father's wisdom despises his own future. Kweku left this village proud, but pride has brought him low. Still, he is my son. And though he has come back with empty hands, he has returned with an open heart. For that, I will not turn him away." The villagers murmured in agreement, some even clapping softly. Ose turned to his son. "You wanted riches without sweat. But now you will learn that sweat itself is wealth. Stand, Kweku. If you have strength left in you, the forge will teach you. If not, hunger will teach you again." Slowly, Kweku pulled himself up, his legs shaking, his face streaked with tears and dust. He nodded. "I will learn, Father. I will never despise the work of your hands again." From that day forward, Kweku became a new man. He woke with the sun and stood by the forge. Though his hands blistered and his arms ached, he did not complain. He carried water, gathered firewood, and hammered iron until sweat drenched his body. At first, he stumbled, burning himself, breaking tools, and earning laughter from the other apprentices. But each mistake made him more determined. Ose watched silently, teaching him not only with words but with patience. "This fire," he told Kweku one evening as the flames roared, "is like life. If you respect it, it will serve you. If you despise it, it will burn you." Years passed, and Kweku grew into a strong man. His back was straight, his arms powerful, his hands careless but skilled. He became known across the villages as Ose's son, the blacksmith who had returned from shame to mastery. Farmers came to him, hunters praised his work, and even warriors carried his spears into battle. But Kweku never forgot the day he fell in the dust, begging his father for food. It became the lesson of his life, one he told to every young boy who tried to despise work. "Never mock the trade that fits you," he would say. "For one day, you may find yourself begging for the very food you once thought you didn't need." The villagers, too, remembered. They spoke of it for generations, the proud boy who refused his father's trade, but later begged for food at his father's feet. And parents told their children, "Respect your father's wisdom, for it may save your life one day." Ose grew old and passed away, but his forge lived on through Kweku. And when young apprentices asked Kweku why he worked so hard, he would only smile sadly and say, "Because once, I thought I was too good for this fire. And hunger taught me otherwise."